Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's great to see we've got a full house again today. So, today I am going to share with you some tips for how to handle the move out process in your Rentec Direct account. So, for those of you I haven't had the joy to meet, my name is Janelle, and my teammate and friend Catherine is joining us today, and she's going to be here to answer all of your questions that you might have about the material I'm presenting. So, she is behind the camera, so she's there for you when you need her. I wanted to just mention to you, you can sit back and enjoy today's webinar, but I also want to encourage you to join in the conversation. So you have some interactive webinar tools that are available to you, and they're in the upper right corner of your screen. Catherine's going to be looking at the questions tab. So if you have any questions for her, go ahead and send them through the questions tab. And then that chat tab that you see there, that is going to be for shouting out answers to questions that I pose for all of you. And then that polls tab, that is for seeing how we all compare to each other. So you can answer those questions as you're prompted. So we're going to clip through today's webinar at a fairly good pace, so you can get back to your task. But before we get going, I just thought I'd ask how many of you are working remotely? Maybe you've been working remotely for a while, or maybe you're just starting to. So click on that polls tab and let's see who's working remotely. I know most of the staff here at Rentec Direct are back in the office. We're pretty lucky for that, but there are a handful of our team members that are still working remotely, and I'm one of them. It's really handy for those that have children who are also doing school remotely. So I feel pretty blessed that we have that flexibility, and having web-based software makes that a possibility for you too. So I'd love to hear how that's all working out for you guys. So, I'm curious, how many days notice do your tenants give you when they're ready to move out? I know Washington is different from Oregon, it's different from Portland. Sometimes it's city specific, sometimes it's state specific. So why don't you shout out for us through the chat tool, how many days you require in a written 30-day note, or excuse me, a notice to vacate. So tell us that. Okay, your tenants told you they need to move out, and we just want to start with step number one, what you need to do, and that's to document their notice to vacate in your Rentec Direct account. So to document the notice, if you've not done that before, just click on Move Out Options in the tenant menu. That's on the tenant page. And you're just going to list the date that the tenant is scheduled to move out. And any notes that you list in this screen, they're going to be saved in your tenant's notes and history section. So it's a handy place to store those important details. And if your tenant is occupying more than one rental, maybe you have, more than one rental they're in, or garages or storage units that you track separately, just know you can toggle which unit they're moving out of by just clicking on that arrow key next to the property name. And, beyond documenting the day your tenant is moving out, I wanted to just share some recommendations with you that I have. If you haven't made it a policy yet, always get your tenant's notice to vacate in writing. That includes a date, and get signatures from all the adults. Make sure they also get a copy of this with your signature. I've heard clients say that their tenant sent them a text or left them a voicemail. Well, we want you to have proper documentation. So just make sure that you get that. And also, you're probably going to want to review, your lease terms that you have with your tenant, just to prepare them for the upcoming move out process. And, you may want to, make them aware of any upcoming fees that they might incur when they're moving out. They might have forgot, those terms that are in their lease. And I recommend that you schedule a pre-move out inspection. That's so that you'll be prepared for what turnover work you're going to be facing, because you know what it looked like when they moved in, but maybe it's going to be in a different condition and you're going to want to be prepared for that. So begin scheduling your vendors or your maintenance team right away, because I don't know if you've ever ran into this, but I have in the past when I was doing property management. If I waited, sometimes my vendors were booked up. So right when you get that notice is a good time to schedule that. And then also, you're going to probably want to start your marketing efforts, because, it may take a little bit to fill that vacancy depending on, what the market's like in your area. So just make that an item that you do just as soon as you get that move out notice. And sometimes I've had the experience of, and I'm sure you have too, that maybe your tenant needs to adjust their move out date. So it's very easy to do. You're just going to go back into that tenant menu and you're going to select the option for move out. It says move out options, and you can update the date, or if they're canceling, you'll see that button there to cancel their move out. And I always say add extra notes. Anytime you document your activity with adding some extra notes, it's helpful. So be sure to select that blue button you see there to save any changes that you've made to their move out date. So just like the original notice to vacate that you received, make sure you get any changes in writing. Always get it in writing if you can. I can tell you, stories upon stories when I was a property manager, and how by getting those things in writing, it just saved my bacon many times. So because I also didn't get it in writing before, it saved me. So I'm sure you understand the importance of it. A few tips to consider when your tenant makes a change to their move out date is, how is this going to affect any future tenants that you have already, maybe taken rental applications on? Also, you may have to tweak your turnover schedule with your vendors or your maintenance helpers, and also your marketing. So make that as a little reminder to yourself if a tenant updates their move-in date. So how many tenants do you all have out there? I'm just curious, are we talking about just a couple tenants, or, do you have, many tenants? So I'd love to hear, in that chat screen, just throw it out there for us. And, about how many move outs do you get a month, or even in the year? Are we talking just a couple, or do you have lots? I'd love to see how we compare, all of you that are here today. There's differences in someone who has a couple rentals and then someone who is used to just cycling through move outs. And we find sometimes that houses are a little different than apartment communities, or of course college housing. We're going to see different rates of turnover. So I'm just curious what you guys experience. All right, so there are different locations in your Rentec Direct account that you're going to be able to track the information related to your tenant's move out, and I want to show those to you. So first, in the tenant page, you're going to see their scheduled move out displayed right on the page there next to the tenant's name. And it's right underneath the property that they live in. And then when you first log in, if you've recorded a notice to move out, your summary page can remind you of that upcoming activity. So it's helpful to keep an eye on your summary notices there. And the summary page reminder, that option to have it displayed there, that's going to be toggled through your program's default settings. So if you're not seeing those right now, just know you can adjust that through your settings page. And now there's another way that you can track your scheduled move-outs, and that's through your tenant reports page. So you go to your reports page, and then you'll see that sub-page there. And you're just going to select the report date and then the filters, and you're going to choose that report called Rentals Ending. And just remember that this report is date bound, so it's not for a date range. It's as of a specific day, who do we have that's given notice. So just pay attention to that date and indicate that in your filters when you're pulling it. So once a tenant's move out date has arrived, the tenant's going to automatically be moved out of their rental property. So you don't have to trigger anything more than scheduling their move out date. And you're going to notice once that day happens that they're going to be listed as inactive. In the tenant tab, it'll say inactive because they're no longer attached to a property. So if you want to view, which of your tenants are not tied to a rental, there's a trick. You can just click on the F3 key on your keyboard and just type in for the search the word inactive. And it's going to isolate all your tenants that have been moved out or not tied to a rental. So there's another location where you can find information related to a tenant's move-out activity, and it's in the tenant and property notes and history section. So you'll just go to the respective menu and you're going to see that option. And I think this section is really helpful if you've had changes to activity and you need to review it, or maybe you want to look at historical move-in and move-outs of a particular property. That property's notes and history is going to document that for you automatically as you are scheduling move-outs or adjusting move-out dates. So when it comes to tracking tenants that are moving out, the big takeaway that I want to share with you all is just be careful and pay close attention to the laws in your area surrounding, how long you have before you send out that accounting reconciliation of the tenant security deposits. So in Oregon, as it is in many states, there are some severe financial penalties if you fail to provide an accounting statement to your tenant that has moved out within a specific amount of days. So make sure that you're aware of that. Look into your state and local laws. What is the timing on that, and be sensitive to that. I want to give you that reminder so you don't run into any headache. So if you collect a security deposit from your tenant, of course, at the move out process, you're going to want to jump on it right away after they've moved out so that you can make sure you meet those timelines I was talking about. So I'm curious out there, how much do each of you charge for security deposits? Do some of you charge first and last month's rent, pet deposits? What are you charging? Light up that chat screen for me and Catherine, and we can see what you're charging, and so can the people who are here today that are joining you. So inspecting your rental once a tenant has actually moved out, that's a pretty critical piece. So the pre-move out inspection should have, given you a heads up of what to anticipate, but that final walkthrough is going to be just as important. And if you're looking for some additional tools to assist you with your move out inspections, you may want to take a look at one of our affiliates that we work with called Z Inspector. So I've been displaying here a little video that they have about their partnership with Rentec, and also how their tools look. But basically they integrate with your Rentec direct account, and which is really cool, and inspections that you make are going to show up in your property files automatically. And they have some really fabulous tools for you and your tenants to document these inspections. They can be video inspections, photos, just checklists. So give them a shout and ask them how their program works. They have separate fees from your Rentec direct account, but I just wanted to tell you about them. Whichever direction you decide to go for your inspections, whether you're using an outside service or you have your checklists, like I used to use, just a a move in and move out inspection checklist. Just make sure you document them in your tenant and your property files in your Rentec direct account, so you have all that information stored in one location. Each tenant and each property has their own file library, so there's plenty of place to store that information. So again, whichever direction you go, just know that through the property or the tenant menu, you're going to find the locations where you can store that move out inspection details, photos, videos, checklists, you name it. So once you've completed that move out inspection, you're going to want to begin documenting what turnover expenses you're going to incur. because there rarely is a move out that doesn't require some sort of work from you or some sort of expense. So, be sure to review those lease terms so you're clear on, what expenses you're able to pass on to your tenants. You may have a wear and tear clause in your lease that details that out. And don't forget to include charges for labor and materials if you or one of your employees is taking care of that work. And I recommend that you save copies of your receipts and any vendor invoices, so you'll have that easy reference to be able to share that with your tenants if you need to. And for our property managers, be able to share that with the property owners so they can see, what did it take to get that rental ready for the next tenant. So to begin processing a tenant's security deposit, you're going to first open up the tenant's ledger and also their security deposit ledger. And if they're delinquent on any charges, just keep this in mind when you're getting ready to process their security deposit refund. So make sure you've reviewed how much you have on hand for their security deposit, and you can do that by opening up their security deposit ledger. You'll see that button at the top that tells you how much you've recorded. So the options in your tenant security deposit ledger are going to guide you through the transactions that you need to record. So if you're returning, some or all of the deposit to the tenant, you're going to notice that option there. And when you click on it, you'll be able to fill out the details about what you're returning to them. So there are options to apply a portion of the deposit as a credit to the standard ledger for your tenant in case they have any delinquencies in rent or late fees. And if you've collected last month's rent and you've stored that payment in their security deposit ledger, like we recommend, this is the option that you're going to take to apply that to their regular ledger. So that credit is really key there when you select that option. There's another option that you can transfer the deposit to the property to cover any property expenses. Maybe you paid for carpet shampooing, or you paid a vendor to paint. So you're going to see that's the last option on this page there for managing that security deposit. And you might notice here in this screenshot, and also if you've ever been in the tenant security deposit ledger, that there's an option to charge against the deposit in the deposit ledger. And by default, this is not enabled in your account. You'll see it's light gray here. But if you're a property manager, I just want to say why it's grayed out, because we don't really recommend it. We want to give you some caution in using that option just because it can go against trust accounting laws in some states. So we caution against that. But if you do want to record tenant charges in the deposit ledger, you're going to want to toggle your advanced program default settings. So that's under your settings tab in program default. Just scroll down to the bottom, hit the advanced ones, and you'll see it there. But again, use some caution, and if you're needing some help understanding that more, reach out to Catherine and her team on the client success team. They can answer those questions for you. Handling tenant security deposits, it's very important that you do it correctly, and I know it's a huge part of property management. So we created a training video that's dedicated just to managing tenant security deposits, because there are so many nuances to how our clients handle this. Across the country, it's handled differently. So that training video, I have the link listed here, and I'll also send it as a follow-up in that email I'll send you after this webinar. You may want to check out that training video if you need some more information. All right, so processing security deposits, I want to, just give you a few tips. You're going to want to document them like crazy. Document all the activity you're doing. Again, make sure you follow your state and local laws. And, we have a knowledge base article that has all the written instructions for processing that security deposit. And again, I will email you a link to that knowledge base article so that you can read through that when it comes time. Because right now we're just kind of introducing some of these concepts, but when it comes time to do it, you may want to have those instructions right next to you. So after you've completed processing any turnover charges and you've handled that security deposit reconciliation, you are going to want to provide your tenants with a move-out statement. So if you open up your tenant security deposit ledger, you're going to find an icon. It's in the upper right corner, and you're going to be able to use that to print out the ledger, or you can email it or convert it to a PDF or a CSV file if you like to manipulate that information outside of your Rentec Direct account. So along with a security deposit ledger, most clients that I work with, they also send a tenant statement to go with that. And the standard tenant statement is found through, if you go in through the tenant menu. And any security deposit funds that you've transferred from your security deposit ledger over to the tenant standard ledger, like we talked about just a few minutes ago, those are going to appear on this tenant statement. So a lot of people marry the security deposit ledger printout with the tenant statement and send both of those out to their tenants when it's time to mail them their refund or just mail them a bill. So remember, just again, I think I might be drilling this too hard, but it's super important. Just follow the laws for your area, how you handle a security deposit at move out, and how it must be detailed. The laws are going to be different across the country, and even within, states, they're different in some cities. So just make sure you're familiar with it. But really what we see consistently is that the laws really want you to provide a tenant statement that details out the dates and, the why and the what for all the charges and payments related to a tenant's security deposit that they paid. So, and again, make sure you meet those deadlines that you have for returning, the security deposits, and just keep really good notes. That's why you have that notes and history section. So once you've moved your tenant out and you've issued, their refund or their statement, you're going to be ready to archive your tenant. So you don't have to leave them in your active tenant list. You don't want to clutter up that page with a lot of, historical tenants. So archiving a tenant is just done through the tenant menu, and you don't have to worry. You're not going to lose any of their tenant details when you archive them. Their details can be viewed and accessed and manipulated right by clicking on, you'll see there on the tenant page, it says display archived. And when you click on that, you'll see all of those tenants that you've archived. So if you have a tenant that's moved out and they owe you some money still, maybe their turnover expenses were more than their security deposit, or they skipped out on you, just know we have found a service. You may already have your own, or you have your own system for how you handle it, but we found a service that'll assist you in collecting the debt that the tenant owes you. And if you just type in collections in that need help section, you're going to see a knowledge base article is going to pop up, and it's going to give you all the details of how to reach out to that company. We're not connected to them other than we've just done some research and we like what they have to offer. So I do recommend, if you haven't done already, that you create a checklist for yourself that mimics your ideal flow for processing your tenant move-outs, and just review it consistently with each and every tenant that moves out of your property. So, back in the days when, we had endless paper files, I used to print out my checklist and I would attach it to the front of my tenant folder, and I would just make sure, to check those off so I covered all my bases, because we know you're wearing a lot of hats on your property management day to day, and maybe some of you are juggling other jobs too. So having that checklist is just going to be really helpful for you. So I created a checklist that I showed here on the screen, and I just want to share it with you. You can follow this link and you can download it, and you can make changes and save it to your own Google files if you want to, but I just wanted to give you something, a starting off point if you don't have one already, and I'll also email you a link to that. So I don't know if you know this, but this is the last webinar of 2020. It's been a wild and crazy year, but I've had a lot of good times talking with you all and gathering for webinars, but this is the last one for the year. We do have a library of past webinars, so you can check those out and watch them. They're on the Rentec Direct YouTube page, and there's a lot of good information there. But be sure to follow the Rentec Direct blog because we're going to post updates when we start these webinars up in the new year. And I wanted to give you all just the insider scoop. Your Rentec Direct development team, they have been busy in the background, making all the magic, but they're updating your user interface. So you're going to be seeing some exciting updates right around the first of the year. So I just wanted to put that little bug in your ear. I also wanted to mention, for those of you out there that are already sharing your love of Rentec Direct with your friends and your colleagues, I wanted to tell you, if you didn't know, we have a referral program. I mean, we love these, free word of mouth advertising, but we have a program that we want you to, take advantage of. So just follow this link. I'm also going to email it to you. It'll give you all the details, but basically, your friends are going to get 2 weeks free, a trial period just to get started and get their account set up. But you're also going to put 50 bucks in your pocket if you let us know about this referral. So this article is also on the Rentec blog, but I'll email you a link to it. So I really, really appreciate all of you, taking time out of your day to join Catherine and I for this webinar, because I want you to be able to, really fine tune your skills. And I hope that you're able to take away some information that will help you in that process. And I want to thank Catherine. She's been busy over there answering questions that you might have posed to her. So thank you, Catherine. I appreciate your help. And, if you have any additional questions that we didn't cover in today's webinar, you can always reach out to your client success team. We are here for you. We want you to be successful. So don't hesitate. We're here Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. up until 5 p.m. Pacific. So be safe, friends. Have a beautiful day.